Hi, this is Privateer Station, and today we bring you day 481 of Putin's invasion into Ukraine. As always, with former advisor to the office of the President of Ukraine, Lieutenant Colonel Olexiy Arestovych, and Mark Feygin, Russian opposition politician, lawyer, and blogger. Today's special thanks go to Bill, to Diaries, to Carolyn G, and to John Afseth. Thank you guys for supporting us, and with this, let's dive into day 481. Enjoy. Dear friends, glad to see you on Monday, June 19th. Time is 10 p.m. in Kiev, same time in Moscow, and we're doing our usual stream on Feygin Live, day 481 with Olexiy Arestovych. Olexiy, glad to see you. Good evening, good evening. Timely, we're timely today. Yeah, it does happen, Mark, sometimes. I hope it won't become a system, violations of our format. Because I get messages, people saying we want to sleep, we have relations with wives and all, when you guys come out later at 11 p.m. Yeah, those who needs to go to sleep, good night. By the way, yeah, Victor Tsoi and his songs, very appropriate to today's politics and all. Okay, so people are clicking like buttons. Please continue. I see just 13,000 of you did so. That's barely enough, so please continue clicking it. And I recently tried doing something on TikTok, posting stuff there. I only have 62,000 subscribers there, and it's not too much. So I'm not going to agitate any of you to go to TikTok. Please stay here. Continue subscribing, continue clicking like buttons, and do not forget to subscribe to Olexiy's channel and as well to the Privateer Station. All right, let's start with Roman Abramovich today. I have no words. What do you mean? What did he do, Mark? You probably heard, or if not, he was concerned that these 2.5 billion pounds, sterling pounds, British currency, should not be sent wholly to Ukraine. And I would remind our viewers that he lives between Israel and Turkey now, and he is sanctioned in Britain. And he's got some of his assets, the yacht and other things. And he's concerned that the whole amount is going to Ukraine. And he thinks that most of it needs to be sent to Russia because people in Russia have also suffered. And I don't know who suffered there. Did anybody invade Russia? Did anybody attack them on tanks or with artillery or shelling them with missiles? I don't know. I think Kiev politicians have had plans for Abramovich and his influence, and I cannot talk about whom did I meet there, but when I was in Ukraine, I did see some influential people who did mention that we had some plans, but currently it seems like he is just saving his own butt. And I think it's symptomatic that Russian oligarch, even if he is of Jewish descent, is uncurable because, first of all, he is saving his own butt. And he's trying to save his money, balls, and all. And it's not that he is only saving himself. He also always needs to make a Nixon towards or bow towards Kremlin. And it's not change. It's 2.5 billion, right? Pounds. So he also waved in the direction of Kremlin, saying, "Don't think I completely sold to Kiev. I'm actually with you." So we created a poll dedicated to that event, and I want to read our today's question. Question is, why did Abramovich refuse to give money to Ukraine from selling Chelsea? First, he is too greedy. Second, he is afraid of Kremlin. Third, he wants to deceive everybody and be the smartest guy in the room. What do you say? Olexiy, Mark, I cannot put you in an uncomfortable position again. How do you mean? Well, how can you judge hundreds of Russian millionaires and billionaires by one even the big one like Abramovich, because I don't like to judge everybody by actions of one. No, I think it's social. I think it's social in this group. No, according to my understanding of world, Mark, about the freedom of will and individual morals. And second point, Abramovich is a Russian citizen. Whom should be he for? Whom should be rooting for? Well, he could be for Ukrainians. He did say that he concerns about Ukrainians. Well, he did not refuse to give all money to Ukraine. He said, I'll give part money to Ukraine and part money to Russia. Translating that to human language, it means nothing. Well, let's see if that happens. Actually, we won't see if that happens because British will not let him do that. And the third point, Mark, we don't know what caused such a nod towards Kremlin from him. It could be certain apparatus games, and who can vouch that these games do not bring anything good to Ukraine, that you need to sacrifice a little to get more. You know, I don't know, with the political background that he'll get from these statements, I don't think he'll be able to do anything to Ukrainians. Well, we'll see. But sometimes they need to... One could approach him and say, you need to show a bit more loyalty to Putin, because otherwise it's difficult for us to explain what the heck are you doing there. So, politics is an art of compromise, and it's difficult to judge statements like that without knowing the full picture or all the facts. And, the extreme positions are usually easy. In order to get a lot of likes, a lot of followers, you take the extreme position and you have a ton of followers pretty quickly. But if you are taking an intellectual position and try to set your feet firmly in reality, I, for example, do not want followers who are running around with slogans and screaming at everybody and hate everybody. I'm following the Bible. I'm trying to think about people. I'm trying to think well about people until it is proved to the contrary. I think there's a ton of proof against Abramovich. What kind, Mark? That he's bad? Maybe. I don't know him too much, or too well, so I'm not ready to judge. But presumption of innocence, nobody canceled that, right? Okay, let's maybe discuss his role in earlier stages of war related to Istanbul and Minsk negotiations early up. I cannot judge his position fully and his role and his input. I did not work with him directly, but certain intermediary effect that was valued by Mikhail Podolyak at the beginning of our conflict, and he articulated that influence that Abramovich brought. It existed. David Arachamia also said that Abramovich was useful to a degree, and Podolyak confirmed that as well. So I would suggest asking these two individuals, because they may have more information. I have not participated in these processes and directly for quite a while. Well, I'm asking you to judge what happened back then. Well, I know the fact that he called. I don't know the contents of his conversation, but I know that he called. And I know that he called both sides. And I have not met him personally, so it's difficult to judge. Okay, so you're suggesting to wait and see? I'm suggesting not to turn into a crowd that screams, carries pitchforks and torches, and, it's only dead fish that follows the stream. 100%. So, when some people come out and say that Abramovich wanted to give money to certain people, well, it's his money, it's his choice where to send it. It would be strange if he sent money to Mongolia or Zimbabwe, with all my respect to these countries. No, I think you're wrong here, Olexiy. I think he first tried to get rid of sanctions from British and European and try to evade American sanctions with his promises that he will donate money to Ukraine from selling Chelsea, etc. And he got at least not being included into American sanctions, and maybe even more. So if he will be misbehaving from the point of view of Americans, he will probably be included into the sanction list again. Not a big deal, right? Okay, we have people voting. Over 28,000 already left their votes. He's greedy, 10%. Finding his own solution, 38. What do you mean he is greedy? Well, the money are in a bank. They have not went anywhere yet. Mark, you should have changed the response options. I don't think you're following. No, Olexiy. I think the core is important to us, and over half thinks that he wants to be smarter than everybody. Mark, we are in a mirror-like situation in this case, I think, because there are a lot of accusations that you and I are psyop spies of Kremlin, or there are a ton of accusations going one way or another. And I do not want to attack people at hominem and make statements like that. Olexiy, I want to tell you that we are not in charge of 2.5 billion pounds. We're just bloggers. We're sharing news and opinions, but we do not have resources en masse such he does. So I think I think he's making idiots of everybody. I think the fact that he even wants to give money to Russia is wrong. Did he say that nobody suffered in Russia? Did he say that he's giving 50% there, 50% there, Mark? No, he didn't. He just expressed his concern. Well, exactly. So those people who have money from sale of Chelsea Soccer Club will figure it out and will give the money to where they belong. All right. We are. Let's proceed. We are at about 12 minutes. So let's continue. I didn't plan to spend that much time on Abramovich. So now Russia has more weird news about Zaluzhny and going through some post-traumatic syndrome, and Budanov being sent to Germany to treatment. And today both of them showed up on the videos. Zaluzhny working on the maps, and Budanov triple dead, right? They're both alive and well. So my question in this relation is, do you think this could be a psyop from Ukraine, that Russia would shit themselves and would look funny after biting these news or pseudo news? Or do you think this is a Moscow psyop to try to concern and make Ukrainians worried about where is Budanov, where is Zaluzhny? Which psyop do you think is more in this news? Well, Mark, excuse my question, when was Russian psyop successful? They need situational success. They don't think far. They basically let's live to Monday, and they think this thought in the morning of Monday. Our guys I don't think would do psyops, playing with names and lives of general commander and special services. There could be disinformation campaigns, but they're not being thrown out like that to the social media. So I think they just were laughing at Putin and his propagandists. And even Putin came out and said that one of them is abroad getting treatment, and it turns out to be completely fake. Well, Mark, who cares that he lies? Because he lies. He lies all the time. And there's a Ukrainian saying, you cannot get worse than that. How else one can bring him down? He's already pretty down. These idiots caught their own balls again and hammered them. These are Kremlin people. What else do you expect from them? Well, we know they're dumb fucks, but why? How do you want to turn dumb fuck in a third degree? Well, yeah, they're definitely higher than Square. Idiots. Whenever they were smart. Did they ever do anything smart during this war? Well, they were scaring people that they will do something. Yeah, right. There are some people who still believe that Putin is some cunning player on the world arena. I'm not part of that group. One can understand who is Putin looking at his actions. Okay, let's take a look at the map, what's happening on the front. And while we are bringing it up, the poll is still going. 36,000 voted. Why Abramovich refused to give money to Ukrainians from selling Chelsea, or at least made a statement that he wants to split this money. 10% think he's greedy, 37% think he's afraid of Kremlin reaction, and he's thinking to be smart, the smartest ass in the room, 52%. So we also do not have much space in chat to play with words, so we have to formulate questions and answers directly. All right, let's go to the map. Can you tell us more about Pitikhatki? Oh, 120th Brigade showed everything, the guys that took it. And now Zhribyanki is the next settlement. There's 429th Detachment, which is basically gone, and they're still somewhat holding positions near Zhribyanki and trying to come to their senses. 128th, in the best traditions of this warfare, just got there and took Pitikhatki away from Russian occupants. There's no special moves or anything. It was real infantry, hardcore fighting, and they were highly professional in doing that. Infantry and tanks, they took Pitikhatki, and this is a good news because this is definite motion forward, especially on the direction where Russian troops got a very strong group, and they think that this may be one of the main directions of attack, so they are defending these positions. And sorry to interrupt you, Olexiy, we are showing black lines. These are defense lines that are known that Russian troops have created. Okay, let's go forward and let's take a look at Great Novoselovka. Their line doesn't change much. The fighting still goes, but towards Novozlatopol is now covered in green. This is what on the map at 7 o'clock now. This is one of the important parts. And there's also motion from Makarovka to Staromayorskaya, right? Yes, we are proceeding. That's on the top of the map. And it's too early to announce good news from that part because Russians threw more reserves in that direction and it's heavy fighting. So we haven't taken it yet. It's going on. There are attacks along the whole front. There are a lot of downed Ka-52s. That's very good news because they are too precious for Russian command. This is super expensive machine. Very effective, but very expensive. I think initially they had about 150 at the beginning of conflict. And today, Olexiy, who were counting every bean, every equipment going down, and they're closing now, but they already counted about 40 downed helicopters of that type, and that's a lot before they shut down. And in the last 2 to 3 days, we downed anywhere between 2 to 4 helicopters of that type. It needs more checking, but that's good news. Marinka, difficult fighting, positional fighting. Avdiivka, also heavy fighting. 2 days ago, they pushed our troops a little, tried to fortify their new positions, and we counterattacked and had partial success in reclaiming those positions. Bakhmut, motion towards Kleshivka and Verkhovka still go. And Hanna Mahler, Vice Minister of Defense, and she's in charge of strategic communications. She is also saying that in Kremenная and Kupinsk direction, Russian troops changed their stance and trying to attack our positions. Remember, we talked about the group that still has enough resources to attack, so they are probably creating that situation when they're endangering our flanks and do not allow us to withdraw or transfer more troops from that direction to Zaporozhye. That means that's a good sign. That means that their things are not going well down in Zaporozhye. If they're playing that game, if they're trying to hold our reserves to make sure that they're being thrown in that direction, that also technically shows how bad it is down in the south. Before that, they also moved some of the detachments and some of the equipment up north to Belgrade, where Russian Volunteer Corps went. So yeah, the war continues. All right, so this is all so far. And yeah, of course, there is shellings, and this night they again attacked southern regions, Shahids for missiles of a caliber type, and they all were shut down. Okay, let's go next to the next set of news. We have 180,000 already watching us on Feygin Live. 63,000 clicked the like button. Not enough, guys. Please continue clicking it. I hope you continue also sharing links to these streams in your social media. Make sure that people who need to see that angle, they do see it. People who are interested in true commentary of the news, the way they unfold, not some shenanigans, make sure they come here and see it. And do not forget to subscribe, including Privateer Station, if you are listening or watching that in English. Let's comment on Biden's statement related to NATO summit in July. This is a rather important opinion about Ukrainian membership in this organization and the discussion going around it, that Ukraine probably will not become a member of NATO in the next summit. And many people are looking at Biden's statement as not too cheerful and asking why did he even speak about that? What was the reason? Mark, we talked about that. And I did say that in Vilnius, we are expecting a cold shower in regards to calendar plan and NATO pathway for Ukraine. Obviously, partners are not ready to give calendar plans to the country in war, and this is going to be, there's not going to be much progress there while the war is going. But as for the military support and nomenclature of new items, that I think is more hopeful and looks more optimistic. There was a huge statement made by Stoltenberg where he basically sends a lot of kudos to Ukraine, saying that Ukraine will enforce NATO and it probably is the best thing that can happen to NATO when Ukraine joins NATO. And of course, we will accept Ukraine into NATO, but we cannot do it during the hot phase of the war while it's raging. So in this regard, I'm very calm. What is important, I think, is equipment and military support to be transferred on time and our troops to be trained. All right. What do you think about Stoltenberg's statement that he's going to stay ahead of NATO only till autumn, and there are new discussions about new candidates for this organization? And of course, it's a collegiate organization, but still the leader of it does have an influence on the statements. And yeah, of course, it is a strong position there because the way how you bring questions, what you do, that does affect NATO politics. So Wallace is being discussed. Von der Leyen is another person, ex-Minister of Germany, Minister of Defense. Both of them take pretty radical position against Putin, right? Yes, they do. Against Putin and his regime in Russia. And they're very continuously friendly and supportive to Ukraine. Wallace is a great friend of Ukraine. Ursula von der Leyen changed the whole European politics, collective politics of European Union in our favor. So I think these candidates are really good ones. There are no ones like Orban who would be pro-Putin or represent something, or the ones who are talking about balance and something in the middle. Luckily, there are no people like that. There are decisive ones who are being suggested to this position. All right. So you think that in autumn, situation will unfold better with NATO for Ukraine? Mark, the head of NATO does not make a decision who joins NATO and when. It's a collective decision made by its members, and a huge part of that decision is on the United States. They are one of the bigger participants and donors of this organization and one of the main military and economic and political forces in the world. They decide a lot of things, even though, of course, each vote matters. So I think in autumn, a lot will depend upon the position of the United States, which will go into their presidential race at the end of October. Usually it is a pretty rough race and both sides take extreme positions. So I suspect people like Urban and friends, with their specific position, who not only attack Ukraine, they also often attack Sweden and some other countries. I think the new head of NATO will dedicate more attention to statements like that. Whoever takes that position, this person will definitely pay more attention to the outcasts like Hungary under Orban. About 20 countries did support Ukraine joining. Turkey, the only outliers are Hungary with Orban, and Turkey is not entirely clear with their statement. So we're still working. And either one or the other candidate will, I think, be a good proponent of our joining anyway. Okay, 270,000 are with us. 74,000 click the like button. We've been live for a little over 25 minutes. And I remind you that the voting still goes on about Abramovich and his refusal. Or if you want to edit the question, suggested a different form of monetary distribution from selling Chelsea Soccer Club between Ukrainian and Russian recipients. He's too greedy, 10%, afraid of Kremlin, 37%, and 53% thinks he wants to be a smartass. Right now, the head of Department of State, Blinken, is visiting Beijing, and there are several news related to that. China and United States, in lieu of Blinken visit to Beijing, achieved understanding on a number of questions, which is good. That was stated by Xi Jinping. Blinken also made a statement saying that China and the United States do not want to rush into the Cold War and escalate conflicts. And, some people are saying that Blinken was talking to Chinese officials for about 10 hours. Right. It actually, I think, is true, was confirmed. And their Minister of Foreign Affairs looks pretty active fellow in China, unlike the previous one. So how would you gauge Blinken's visit in regards to peaceful plan and negotiations and all? I think it's too early to bring this angle to his visit. But the fact of his visit does say a lot. China and the United States are in a very difficult codependent set of relations. Unlike China and USSR, and USSR could be damaged economically without much risk when the United States were waging Cold War. Unlike that, China is very intricately connected with the United States, and America cannot make certain decisions, even if they have conflicts. But Chinese also have certain position. They're being offended by the stance of the United States, calling China to be their adversary number one in their strategic documents. But at the same time, China and Chinese experts did announce earlier that they want to be number one, and they want the West to go down and China to elevate on the world arena. That happened decades before America even decided to do anything about it. So America, on the other hand, is saying that they have very strong position. They are not going to change the regime in China. So unlike their position against USSR, where they were going to change the regime and get rid of the communists there, in regards to China, they're not making these statements. And after that, there are three options possible. Either Cold War, which both sides want to avoid, or hot war, that both of them wants to avoid as well, or some sort of a cold peace. Sometimes warm, sometimes cold. And of course, there were usual statements made that United States acknowledge territorial integrity of China, that they still take their position about Taiwan. And I think both sides are not talking about bipolar world, because in order for a world to have two poles, there has got to be some zone of Chinese influence acknowledged, and the United States are not acknowledging that. And there is no mentioning of a Chinese bloc, just like back in the day there was a USSR or Eastern bloc. Second is that nobody wants to change regime in China, so that's another basis for not having a Cold War. And Americans are definitely following the principle that a bad peace is much better than a good quarrel. And China is also making a bunch of decisions in this regard. By the way, one of them was related to Ukraine, and that was voiced by China, that they gave a word that they will not be giving arms to Russian Federation, to Putin's regime. They did not say anything about not supplying food rations and clothes and other items, but at least military articles are not going to Putin. And to violate this word is to lose the face for China, so it's good news. It means that there are not going to be sudden replenishment of any strategic reserve that they're trying to create in Russia. There are no stashes for that. And this is changing the strategic outlook for this war in the future, because Russian own resources are depleting. Iran is not working too close with Russia and will not be able to substitute Russian production anyway. And China just took their position in this. All right, we have been online for 31 minutes already. Let's switch to another news. Merkava tanks from Israel, because that news lived for several days. And there were statements about repaired and maybe old models of Merkava. This is a pretty good tank, rather good tank, battle tested. And there were news that these tanks will be sold to Europe and perhaps could be moved from Poland to Ukraine. And today, Ministry of Defense of Israel came out and said that they're not going to sell Merkava anywhere. And by the way, we need to say that they have not sold this tank to anyone before. It's not being given to anyone. And I think that's the official position of Israel. How it is in reality, I don't know. But what do you think? You've recently been at the security conference in Israel. Oh yeah, I even actually got into the tank on a number of occasions. So, okay, good. Then tell us, what do you think in regards to Israel and Ukraine relations? I saw that Zelensky's spouse is also visiting Israel now. Mark, we just need to follow the events, what's actually happening. A couple clarifications. The conversation was going about Merkava 3 and Merkava 2. Merkava 3 is a very new tank. It's a really new one. Merkava 2 is even pretty good. And Israel specialists are actually thinking that Merkava 3 should not be even sold because it's rather new. But they're trying to shrink the number of tank brigades in Israel, so they will have a few of those in conservation. And both of them are very modern. And whichever country gets it will definitely have enough strength. It'll be a good present to the country, whoever gets it. And today we cannot talk about the country that will get it, so we cannot talk about Ukraine getting that. Israel is saying that they're not supplying military resources to Ukraine, but there could be a third country that will get it, and Israel is not saying anything against it. Plus, there is another scheme that may follow. Another country may get 200 tanks of Merkava type, and then they can give 200 of their own tanks, a different type, to Ukraine. So you still think that there is some game going around that matter? I'm not thinking, Mark, I'm seeing it. I'm observing it. All right. Curious. Then the next question. At the end of the stream, we have a few minutes left. There is another topic worthy of discussion. On that St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, there were several important heads of state, United Arab Emirates, and that person did not stay at the Q&A session, but Algeria president did stay. And he made a statement that was discussed, that Putin is a friend of all peoples of the world. That's what was discussed. By the way, Algeria is one of the main countries that are allowing Russia to avoid sanctions, including components for military equipment. And it's not a coincidence that Mikhail Podolyak started a little offensive about Western components for Russian military equipment, foreign electronics, especially in Russian missiles. 11% United States, 3% Japan, around 8% in caliber processors made by United States, micro scheme and chips made by United States. So there is a bunch of components in the caliber Russian rocket made by United States. And on one hand, we're given weapons that allow us to shoot these missiles down, and on the other hand, yet gray schemas exist whereas United States companies are selling their components to third parties that later resell them to Russia. So Podolyak is asking upon the United States to trace these ways, and there are some schemes when Russian Federation is user number 4 or 5 in that chain, so it's more difficult to find them. But these chains exist, and there are ways to uncover them. And remember, European Union voted for that, and Americans are also pretty savvy in uncovering these chains, but it's not an easy process. The fact that our Bankova Presidential Street is starting to communicate about that does indicate that our patience is not endless, and getting shot by Russian missiles, which have dozens of percent of Western components, is a strange situation that needs to be remedied. And according to some sources, Algeria is one of the countries that allow Russia to get these components. Well, yeah, that's why I think he's thanking Putin and kissing his feet, right? Because he probably is getting a ton of money from that, of course, Mark. And by the way, Algeria's military are, to a greater extent, are armed with Russian arms. All right. Got it. The last topic I wanted to bring today is that Olexiy Polishchuk, a representative of Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, warned against taking any military action that Moscow will see as attacks against Russia. What will they do, Mark? Will they hit Transnistria with missiles or something, or tactical nukes? Do you think these statements might affect President Sandu and political leadership of Moldova in Tiraspol and Transnistria? Do you think Kremlin statements like that will affect their processes? No, I don't think so. I think what they're targeting is the possibility of Ukraine attacking a neutral territory and then putting a brand on Ukraine as an aggressor in this case, in the case of Transnistria. So from that point, the statement of president and their parliament would be important. And we're seeing that in Moldova, they actually just acknowledged that pro-Russian party is illegal, and they're making their steps to try to support the military operation if that happens, so it stays in the legal fields. And frankly, we have to hold several dozen thousands of our military forces on the border with Transnistria to preclude any provocation there. So it is definitely tempting to aid Moldova, but we are not going to go on their territory without the decision of their leadership and parliament to ask for support. And we're not going to invade without their explicit ask and permission. We do not want to be an aggressor in this situation. So you think until the end of the war, it's impossible to resolve Transnistria question? No, Mark, not to the end of war, but to the point when their political leadership would make such a decision. Whenever that happens, before the end of war, after the war, well, yeah, when Moscow loses, right, when the war is over, then why not, right? We can also go there during war and aid them, but they need to make a decision, if they make a decision. All right. So we've been live for about 40 minutes. The results of our poll: 53,400 votes were given. Why Abramovich does not want to give money to Ukraine from sale of Chelsea Soccer Club. That he initially made a statement that these proceeds need to be split between Russians and Ukrainians. So 10 people think he's greedy, 37% think he's afraid of Kremlin's reaction, and 53% thinks he's a smartass. So here you cannot say that oligarchs are not cunning. They are. Mark, oligarchs are different, just like all people. But the fact that he is trying to deceive both sides in his favor, yeah, that's a legit point of view. All right, thank you for answering this question. 200 and plus thousands are watching us. About 90,000 click the like button. Please continue sharing links to that stream and subscribing. Of course, do not forget to click the like button if you have not done that yet for that stream. And of course, subscribe to Feygin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych, and to the Privateer Station if you are listening or watching that in English and have not done that yet. And we'll be waiting for everybody on Wednesday at 10 p.m. Kiev, right? Right. Thursday morning, Eastern Time Zone, US, will the translation go out. That's a note from Privateer Station. And I did have an interesting stream yesterday with epidemiologist about the consequences of Kakhovskaya dam destruction by Moscow. And these consequences are now actually happening, speaking of epidemics and cholera and other outbreaks that may happen down south there between Odessa and Kherson and Nikolaev. So those who live there and people in Crimea as well, because that's important. Don't drink water, otherwise you may become a goat. See you on Wednesday. Goodbye, everybody.